here it is, the most listened to radio show on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
Hi, I'm Taylor Bybee from Coaster Studios, and you're listening to the Coaster Challenge podcast.
Hi, this is Jeff Joyner. You might know me as Coaster Dad or Logan's dad from Coaster Kids. You're listening to the Coaster Challenge podcast.
Hey, this is Jeff Tucker from Knott's Berry Farm, and you're listening to the Coaster Challenge podcast.
I accept the Coaster Challenge. I accept the Coaster Challenge.
I accept the Coaster Challenge.
I accept the Coaster Challenge.
I accept the Coaster Challenge.
I accept the Coaster Challenge.
I accept the Coaster Challenge.
I accept the Coaster Challenge.
I accept the Coaster Challenge.
Do you accept the Coaster Challenge?
What is the Coaster Challenge? A group of regular people that went from fearful to fearless, all from riding roller coasters. So please secure your hats and glasses. It's time to take the Coaster Challenge.
Here are your hosts, David Cantu and Jenna Gazelle.
Hey, how's it going, Jenna?
Great. How's it going, Dave?
It's going good, going good. Happy beginning of October.
Yay! Just getting closer to Halloween. I love it.
Yeah. Although I feel like Halloween's already been celebrated since last month. We were all down in our whole team was down here in California, and we were all at Not Scary Farm not too long ago.
Right.
So what, 2-3 weeks ago?
A week ago?
God, it's been that long.
Has it been 2 weeks?
2 weeks already?
A week and a half. Week and a half, or
Yeah, close to 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like
It doesn't feel like 2 weeks anymore. I'll tell you that. So it's just, it's like, how you been?
Busy with everything in school. Busy.
Yeah. So I hope everyone's having a good October. I hope everyone had a very productive September, because we sure all did.
Right.
In fact, we're kind of live right now with Andrew and Ivah are also joining us right now. They're listening in and they're also on the live chat, but they're just standing by because Jenna and I are doing basically this is like a traditional episode. So yeah, it's been kind of crazy. We decided we wanted to do a live because we want to include everybody on board and want to make sure that we want the listeners to also have an opportunity to, be able to see us in person and ask us questions along with the episode this time. So,
shiny.
Huh?
I look all shiny.
Shiny. So we're live right here in the Coaster Challenge studio with Ivah live in Ohio and Andrew is live down in Florida. And so we are going to have a really fun, exciting live episode for all you guys here today. But first, since we got the whole team together, we are going to do our tradition. We are going to do our Halloween version of the YouTube highlight clip of the week.
It's the YouTube highlight clip of the week, Halloween edition.
All right, so this week's YouTube highlight clip of the week, I'm going to try and look it up while I'm on live with you guys. But Ivah, since we got the whole team together, Ivah actually shared this lovely YouTube clip week with the team today. Andrew's kind of new to it, but really the discussion is we're going to be discussing a little bit about Not Scary Farm, because the YouTube highlight clip of the week that we're highlighting on this episode is actually kind of cool, because the YouTuber actually filmed Ghost Town in the fog in night vision. And it actually came out really awesome. But really, since we have the whole team here and we were recently at Not Scary Farm is, like I said, it's one of the best haunts in the country that we've seen.
Yeah.
And this was Jenna's first time. This was Ivah's first time being at Not Scary Farm this year, to really see what Andrew and I have told them both, that when you go through Ghost Town, you go through deep fog. And
you can't see anything in front of you.
Yeah. And Andrew, you guys had done it, but Michael had also done it too. So he was really excited about having me go through it for a first time.
There's no such thing as a scare zone at Not Scary Farm. The entire park is one big scare zone.
That's why they recommend no kids come to this event.
I'm not okay with that.
You survived. You survived, Jenna. Just remember that. You survived.
Right.
So, Jenna, tell us, I know you had a really funny experience, which we did discuss in one of our earlier episodes, though. or that's coming
later up.
Coming up.
So unfortunately I wasn't able to stay with the three of you guys because you guys went off on a meeting with some other
with Mice Chat.
With Mice Chat.
Yeah, Mice Chat.
Yeah.
So I was with Adult TV with Fernie and Dee and Sarah, and we went through Ghost Town, and Sarah was on her little scooter, and one of the ghouls came up behind her, and she didn't realize it until she turned around, and all you saw was just darkness and fog, and we were just kind of laughing because it was just the guy was chasing her. It was great. It was just funny as all get up.
Okay, so I actually got the clip. We're just going to play a little bit of this clip because how the guy did it, he did it in night vision on his 4K camera. And it came out really cool with how, because the lighting and everything that's inside in regular color, the night vision actually made it really stand out and it popped out. So that is just a taste of what Ghost Town's like at Not Scary Farm. That's just a taste of it.
I remember it being a lot more foggy.
Yeah.
It looks like it might still be that twilight time.
It's the twilight time where it's still part daylight, but when you're there at pitch darkness, especially toward closing, I walked through it the night when we were all there when we were heading to Ghost Rider, and I will tell you, it was deep fog. I remember Ivah and Jenna were both holding my hands as we were going through Ghost Town. So
no, I was holding on to Michael.
It was like a chain reaction almost.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I would say Ghost Town is probably one of the great hearts of the park for its theming for Ghost Town. And they do an incredible job with the spider webs, the fog, the lighting, the scare actors. I will say Not Scary Farm did a great job this year with the scare actors. A lot of them in makeup. The Roaring 20s area was actually pretty good. A lot of the mazes were really awesome. I think Paranormal actually did Jenna in on this one. So,
David, do you want to, because we're going to be talking about the California trip kind of later on in the live stream, do you want to kind of hold off on more details till later?
We'll hold off details, but I will say in this particular clip, the YouTuber, the Ghost Seeker, actually the night vision was actually not too bad showing the Not Scary Farm clip. So
it was a good video, good quality video.
Yeah,
in the fog.
I kind of like how it made everything. The fog looked like kind of like a blue haze to it.
Yeah. So, but anyway, guys, I will be putting this YouTube link in our show notes for you guys to be able to take a look at the full version of it, because he also does some night images as well. But he did a really good job, highlighting this year's Scary Farm. But I have to say that was a really good YouTube highlight clip of the week.
This is the YouTube highlight clip of the week, Halloween edition.
All right, so right now we are going to do our we got a wonderful episode for you guys, live episode today. So we've got quite an agenda today, Jenna. What do we got going on?
So we've got our interview of Boogie Bash, the Halloween, Universal's Horror Night, Orlando's Horror Night, and then us talking about the trip, and then the storage facility being decorated, and first ever Coaster Challenge podcast meetup in Florida. Is it Hallow Scream?
Hallow Scream, that's correct.
Hallow Scream. I just want to make sure I had that right.
No worries.
And then Scream and Stream media events.
All right. So we got quite a packed thing. So right now, the first part is
I get to interview you and Ivah about Oogie Boogie Night.
Yay!
That was a fun night. It was the first ever Disney event for both me and Ivah to take part of. It was really fun.
Okay, Ivah, what do you think?
Well, I will tell you, as a Disney fan, I absolutely loved it because you had multiple Disney characters interacting throughout the treat trails and also around the park and on the parade. So I absolutely love that. As a parent, definitely, it'd be a great time to get some free candy for your kids. But the only bad thing that David and I both noticed was the treat trails were just so long. There were several that were at least a couple hours long that if you really we wanted to do one actually, and it was over 2 hours for the wait to do one. Yeah. So that was the bad thing I thought about.
And I went to the Oogie Boogie Bash a week before Ivah and I went out there, and I went on opening day with Kid Doll TV and with Sarah and them, and it wasn't, the treat trails were not busy at like we saw the second week. In fact, but at least the ride times were all walk on in the park. We were able to walk on to everything. Web swingers, we were able to walk right on that. We didn't need a reservation like you do during the day. We were able to walk on to Radiator Springs Racers, which is a miracle because during the day, that's a minimum 120-minute plus wait to get on that ride. We got to do Guardians of the Galaxy, Incredicoaster. Soarin'. Soarin', I say, was the longest we waited because they only had one screen running that night. They didn't have both. And I was going to say that, but it was fun. I love the theming. I loved how they had every villain. I even saw villains from the classic Disney cartoons, from Robin Hood, that were there, like Prince John and stuff. I was like, oh my God, I haven't seen that character in a Disney park like ever. And then the one thing I did get to do was I did do the Villains Grove, where you walk through, which is Redwood Creek over by the river raft ride. And I got to ride. Ivah didn't get a chance to experience it because the line was all the way out to the front of the park, which is almost like 2 miles long, and would have taken us all night just to go walk through a hiking trail. So we didn't get to do that part the second week, but I did. It was really cool. But
okay, so did they have more characters at the village, at the villain
Grove? Yeah.
No, just villains in general,
all over the park,
versus what they had during the day at the park.
At every treat
trail, because the parade was all villains too that they had.
In all the treat trails, every treat trail, they had like 10 treat trails throughout the park, and in the core of where you go to get your candy from people, they have a villain designated for each treat trail. So you had one area that had Cruella de Vil, you had one that had Maleficent, and you had the other one,
Dr. Facilier.
Even Dr. the better Facilier. One, the better one that Ivah and I got to saw. They even had the kid from Toy Story.
Sid.
And the kid, he was an actual kid. They put the freckles on him, haircut. He had the braces. He was a spitting image of that kid. Of Sid.
That's awesome.
And if you guys don't like villains, they still had all of your favorite regular Disney characters. We saw Donald, we saw Goofy, we saw Jungle Book, we saw Baloo and King, Mickey and Minnie. So it wasn't just all villains. You still had your favorite heroines too.
That's awesome. I really want to go do it. It's just, okay, is it worth the money?
A good question.
I think so.
I think so, and I'll tell you why. The ride times are all walk.
Exactly. Yep.
We got to experience everything at California Adventure that night, and you're there from 6 p.m. 6 to midnight, 6 to 11. So
6 to 11, and the longest we had to wait was Web Swingers. Without the reservation, we only had about a half-hour wait, and I think it was about that for Soarin', maybe a little bit less. But like you said, we did.
Guardians was a 5-minute walk on. Radiator Springs was 5 minutes.
And that's the other thing too. You got to do that event so you could do Monsters After Dark for Guardians of the Galaxy, because it's only after a certain time period.
Yeah, but I've seen the Guardians, the Monsters After Dark. I've caught that before, like when they switch it over. But it's more like, okay, so outside of the rides. Okay, outside of being able to go on the rides, is it worth the money to have, like for in my case, me and Mike, for us to go do it? Because one, we don't have little kids, but I'm the one that's more the Disney fanatic.
It would be worth it in my view. If it's just two of you. If you have a whole family, I couldn't see it, because really you can walk out of there with grocery bags of candy. You could.
God, I
You could. I
candy.
mean, Kid Doll TV and them walked out with suitcases of candy on opening night because the lines weren't so busy. The cast members would take handfuls and throw it in your bags. So if you go to every treat trail, you'll get your candy's money worth out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, would you though? I mean, how much was it for the event for each ticket?
It was $125.
Yeah.
That's a lot of candy for $120. I mean,
but honestly, I look at it as I look at that 125 as half of it being like a fast pass for me to get on every ride at California Adventure. Because how often can you walk on Radiator Springs? How often can you walk on Guardians, Web Swingers, all that stuff? Web Swingers, you have to have a reservation and you have to fight for that reservation during the day. So I like the fact that the event, and also they even had like little parties and stuff where they had like dessert areas and stuff, and it was kind of cool. But they had every Disney character out in force during that event, and it was fun.
Okay,
also they limit how many people can be in the event, because that's another thing I liked was the park wasn't as crowded. And I was able to enjoy the park, because if you've ever been to Disneyland Resort on a busy day when the park is like you have to be a sardine in a can, it's not that enjoyable. It's not enjoyable when you're in a park that is just crowded with people. Ivah and I got to really, for her first time visiting California Adventure, she actually got to see a Disney park that wasn't super crowded, was able to walk on the rides, and we went. I would say you and I got on every ride within 2 hours.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And the other thing I love, too, is you got to see Disney California Adventure at night. So everything was lit up. It was beautiful, too, especially Pixar Pier. I loved Pixar Pier at night, all with the Ferris wheel lit up and everything, and the coaster, too.
You have to see it when World of Color is.
David, if great minds think alike. I was going to say the same thing. Yeah, you have to come back, Ivah.
Well, I will, definitely.
Okay.
So I saw the pictures of Radiator Springs, and I saw that the cars were a gray. Were they still red, or did they switch them over to the gray?
No, I think they were like every color. We had red, blue, yellow.
Okay, so it was just the picture. They changed the color in the picture, because I had seen the picture you had posted of you guys on that, and it was the car was gray, and I was like,
oh no, they're all colored always. They're always colored. Yeah,
we're all in colors.
Now the second time we went to ride Radiator Springs, the line had gotten a little bit longer. It was a 40-minute wait, and me being the genius I am, I just said, why don't we just do the single rider line? And you and I got on the same car still, and we had no wait.
Yeah, I think the single rider stuff, you get on it a little quicker, and it's not as long of a wait for a lot of those popular rides, like Cars or the Matterhorn or any of the other ones that does single riders. Trying to think, because I have yet to do this, and I'm like kind of on that fence of do we pay the extra money to go do it, because we're not real big fans of a lot of just going over there, because we only go over there for the coast, for Radiator Springs and Incredicoaster, and then the drinks. So it's just, like,
as a first time person, like David said, I felt like it was worth the money, just because I was able to experience everything that first night that we were there for the event with no waits. And normally at a normal day at California Adventure, you do have waits, as we all know. We were trying to play the system with the fast lane and the reservation systems and everything.
Yeah. So the after hours events, so they're somewhat newer to Disneyland, but they've been a fixture out here in Florida, Magic Kingdom and some of the other parks as well at times. And what you're saying makes total sense, because I've been to at least one of these events before. Where it makes the most sense for people is people that don't go to the Disney parks a lot. They're here on vacation for their first vacation or only vacation to Disney World in a few years, and they want to maximize their time. And so people, for example, going to like Mickey's Not So Scary or Very Merry Christmas Party at Magic Kingdom, they won't even do a Magic Kingdom day during their trip. They'll do the other parks and then do the after hours party at Magic Kingdom. And they get like, in just 4 or 5 hours, they get a whole Magic Kingdom experience doing all the rides with the short lines. So yeah, the after hours events, they're great for the short lines, like David said, the fast pass, so to speak.
Okay. Do we have questions?
Mark and Natalie from M&M Amusements asked how long of a ride is Radiator Springs, or how long of a wait is Radiator Springs. That averages on a daily basis. Radiator Springs Racers minimum is 120 minutes, and it can get up to almost 200 minutes. That's one of the most popular rides in the park. It's more popular than Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, because
it's going to be more popular. It's still going to be more popular than Web Slingers.
Even with like them having the reservation times now, it's still a 75-minute wait easily.
Just on the fast lane.
Yeah, just on that one part. So yeah,
like I know, like I said, I think the first time it was like a 10-15 minute wait the first time we rode it, and then the second time it had gone up to 40, and that's when we did single rider, and we kind of got on about 5 to 10 as well.
I almost fell on my knees when I saw 10 minutes on Radiator Springs. I'm like, oh my God, 10 minutes. Really? Yeah. I've never seen. I wanted to take a picture of that because you'll never see 10 minutes.
I would say that Radiator Springs Racers.
The night that Ivah and I went, everybody was focusing on the Halloween stuff. They were all on the treat trails, the Village Grove, but people were the parade and stuff. But the ride times the whole night were low, and we got to marathon quite a few times on a lot of the rides, and I felt I got my money's worth because I was able to ride some of the rides you can't ride during a regular day more than once. You know, it's almost like, could you imagine if Rise of the Resistance was over at California Adventure during this event? We'd probably be able to marathon that thing multiple times, where you're only allowed to get it once or twice in a day.
On a normal day at Disneyland, I would say that not only is Radiator Springs Racers the most popular ride at, the longest line wait time at California Adventure, it's the longest of the entire resort. It is the most popular ride between the capacity. It's not the best capacity, and how popular it is. And it's an amazing ride. It's so much better than Test Track. So, yeah.
But I'll still look forward to riding Test Track when I go to Orlando.
Of course. Test Track maybe not be as good, but it's still a great ride. So it's a good runner-up. On
to the next one.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's pretty much.
So before we move on, David, we forgot to mention something at the beginning. I kind of want to do this earlier on in the live stream. You know what I'm getting at here.
Yeah.
So want to announce to all of our audience, both our live audience here, as well as anyone listening to the podcast here. We here at Coaster Challenge, we have been having a great season. We're about two-thirds the way through our first season here, about 8 months in. And the response we're getting from our fans and our audience has been tremendous. And we're excited about the meetup coming up, where we'll be talking about more later. But to the end of us actually, having a great first season, we are expanding, and we are looking for to add a team member to the podcast team. So besides David, Ivah, Jenna, and myself, we're looking to add a fifth person to help with the editing. There's a lot of editing involved, and we're looking for someone that has either audio or video editing experience to potentially join us. So you can reach out to any of us if you're interested, or if you know someone, please have them reach out to us. We'd love to have the help. So.
Okay, so we're ready now?
The dogs agree. Yeah.
Okay, so Ivah, it's your turn to interview me and David about Universal Hollywood.
Horror Nights.
Horror Nights. Yeah, you guys went and did a different haunt event right before we went to Disney, and that was at Universal Hollywood. So why don't you tell our listeners and everyone watching, how was Horror Nights?
Okay, well, seeing how it was your first time going.
Of all the years in Universal Studios, Hollywood is right in my backyard. The one thing I never attended in my life was Horror Nights at Universal Hollywood. Jenna's been to one.
No, right? I've been to a few of them.
So this was along with Oogie Boogie Bash, Halloween Horror Nights was my first ever experience. But for the record, I did experience Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Florida back in 2017. So keep in mind that when I went to Hollywood, I was expecting to possibly see what I saw in Florida, but it was fun. The mazes were good. I felt not as, they're good for the trademark themes that Universal owns. But if I had to say, Not Scary Farm had the more detailed mazes, more scarier mazes. I will say the Terra Tram was something unique that I never experienced before, but it was her first time getting off the tram, because last time she went, she didn't get off the tram at all. So we both got off and hold hands through the whole thing, because they make you get out of the tram. It's like a normal tram tour like you do at Universal Hollywood, which Florida does not have the tram tour. But then all of a sudden, things start freaking out on the TV screens and stuff. And then it takes us to the era of the Purge. And then there's a lady with a baby on the TV screen asking for help. So the tram stops and you see this lady with the baby from the screen outside, but it's not her and the baby. The baby is a chainsaw. And here comes a group of people with chainsaws, and they have you out of the tram by then. And then they come charging right at you. Keep in mind, kids, there's no chains on the chainsaw. It's just a bunch of noise that they go running through to scare you.
Yeah. So, I have done in the past Universal's Horror Nights. The first time I went, they were still doing the actual makeup. They weren't in masks. And the first time I did it, I actually went through one maze, and again, they did a great job. And then kind of like as the years progressed, I don't know if it's just like the fundings or what it is, but I've noticed that the scare actors aren't wearing, like, they're not in makeup, they're in masks. And for me, that kind of just takes away from it, of like that scare factor. Because it's like, okay, now you're just saying that it's like Halloween, you go out there and you get, you see these different masks. I mean, they still got me, even with me not going in any mazes. I'd still had a couple of the scare actors get me, because they're, they still roam in the different areas. But this year when we did it, it was almost like it was a regular day. Like the night from the day wasn't really that much difference.
Yeah, it really didn't feel like Horror Nights at all when I walked through there. It felt like it was a regular day in the park. Yeah, you hear the Halloween music and all the stuff, but really there were what I was told by people that have gone to Halloween Horror Nights is that the entire park is a scare zone, like Knott's Berry Farm is on their haunt. And we didn't see that this year. Now it's either because there's just not enough people applying for jobs or working to be scare actors, but they only had 2 scare zones. One over by the French Pavilion, where Secret Life of Pets is, and then in the very front entrance of the main street of Universal. That's where they allocated. But even in those areas, they only had like 5 scare actors.
Yeah, it wasn't real scary at all. Like I said, they're for them being known, Universal being known for the horror movies, it was kind of like you're expecting more, and you go in there and you're kind of like, okay, so what's the difference between the day and the night? Like, there wasn't much of a difference, and I don't know if it was just their opening weekend and they just didn't have enough staff, or what. I mean, I still like Universal, don't get me wrong. But I just noticed it's just kind of like
something's going on. It seems to be downgrading.
They're trying to go with Disney.
It seems like every year they're downgrading. It's like becoming more family friendly, like Disney in a way, but it is nothing like Florida. When I went to Florida's Horror Nights, that scared the crap out of me. They had scare actors all over the place, and I didn't get to go do the mazes in Florida, but they were probably almost maybe about the same or probably even better quality than what I saw in Hollywood. But Hollywood, I kind of left disappointed. I felt like Fright Fest at Magic Mountain was more scarier than what I saw at Horror Nights. And I don't like being negative on a park. It's just that Universal, like Jenna said, has always built up with the scare movies and stuff. And they have a lot of good horror movies that they could really do some amazing things. I didn't see that magic in Hollywood. So I don't know. I feel like when we go to Florida, we got to go experience Horror Nights down in Universal because I need to compare it.
And then you guys can tell me all about it.
I hope you guys are able to do it with me. So we've got some of our people that are joining for the meetup are going. So hopefully we can all go together.
Now, you guys talked about doing the Terror Tram, and Purge was a stop. Is that the only stop that they did on the tram, or were there other ones?
It was cool because you got off once. You first walked through Psycho area, the Bates Motel to the Psycho house. You literally walk through there, you actually walk on the platform, basically the platform of the hotel. And they have like these walls up, and they have like all these like gruesome scenes and stuff from throughout the hotel area. And then you walk up to the Psycho, and then all of a sudden Norman Bates is standing right there on the front porch
doing pictures.
But then you walk past the Psycho house, and they still have it, Andrew. They still have the War of the Worlds plane disaster site from the movie.
Cool. That's
and you literally walk through the destroyed homes. You see the airplane, and all the Purge people are sitting there with their masks like they do in the movie, the chainsaws, their weapons, and they are looking like they're ready to hunt you down.
They didn't do the chainsaws throughout the maze. It was when you first came in, and then when you go out. And I have a big thing about the chainsaws. I don't like the chainsaws. I know they don't have the blades on them or the chains on them. It's just the sound of it. It freaks me out.
Juno was making chainsaw sounds for you.
Juno's trying to make me play with his ball right now. So
he sounded like he was doing the chainsaw sound.
Like,
he's trying to help out. He's trying to help out.
With David doing the live feed of it, you could like one of the scare actors literally came up with the chainsaw right between my legs, and I'm just like, okay. I'm not moving. I'm not moving. I'm not reacting. And he kind of like was like, okay, forget it. Like, and then he moved on. But it was just like that. I don't like chainsaws. I could do everything else. I don't like chainsaws.
So to me, I focus with my phone in front of me and just doing what a cameraman does.
I like hearing about the Terror Tram because it's been years since I've done Horror Nights in Hollywood. I've mainly done it in Orlando recently. And the tram itself, the tram ride, is the one, and as far as I'm concerned, the only advantage that Horror Nights, or excuse me, that Universal Hollywood has over Universal Orlando. The only
Agreed.
one. And so it's good to see that they use that great tram ride in such a cool way. I've seen, pictures, friends of the show, Austin and Mark, they've been out in California this past weekend. They went to Horror Nights. And I saw their pictures on Instagram with Norman Bates, being posing with him and going by the set for War of the Worlds, which is such a cool set, as David mentioned. Yeah, I mean, it's great that they do that. I wish they did that back when I went years ago, but that's awesome.
Now, Andrew, I'm going to complain about that. It doesn't have just one thing. It has two things that are better than Florida, the tram and Jurassic World. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that later.
We'll talk about that later. Good point.
But
I think they could probably extend it out.
The tram, they could do multiple stops because they've got the Hill Valley Town Square. It's kind of changed now. It's not what it used to look like, but it's got that city view. They could do my God, Alien Invasion. They could do.
Yeah, they could definitely add on to it.
Mars Attacks, they could do.
Because I think it was they could 5-minute walk.
They could do a World War Z where it's like zombies invading the city streets as you're walking through the city part. But I see the Terror Tram could be a good expansion on some things of future attractions. But
yeah,
if Universal's listening, hope you take that idea and run with it. So
I'm guessing, David, it's maybe a staffing issue. The same reason why you don't see a lot of scare actors in the scare zones is the Terror Tram. It would require actors in each location and also security personnel. So maybe, post-COVID, maybe next year, hopefully post-COVID, not this year, we'll see it. Yes, fingers crossed. So, but yeah, I would love to. In fact, based on your description, when next time I'm in LA, that time of year, I want to try Horror Nights in Hollywood again.
Hopefully it changes because it seems like it's decreasing lower and lower. The mazes are great. There's nothing wrong with the mazes.
The popularity of Universal for us has grown. Like it was really crowded for.
Well, let's put it this way. Since Disney has done the whole reservation thing, even though they brought back the magic key, even the time when they were just doing reservation, there was no magic key. Everybody flooded to Universal because Universal basically said no reservation. Everyone can
come on in. Yeah,
and they were cheaper than Disney.
Okay, so the one maze that I did, the other maze that I did manage to go through with you in the group, Bride of Frankenstein. That got me right at the end.
So right at the end, a double whammy. Her and Sarah from Kid Doll TV. First, you see Frankenstein's wife, right? In the bride.
Yeah.
Then you turn, all of a sudden, Frankenstein. So it's like a double whammy. One hits you one side, when you turn, you're getting hit the other direction.
Perfect.
She gunned it out of the end of the maze. She literally went.
Hold on. So Sarah's in front of us. I'm with David, like kind of arms are hooked. And I see Bride, and I can see Frankenstein laying on the table. Okay. And I'm like thinking, okay, no big deal. All of a sudden, like we go to turn, and Frankenstein just jumps out of the window. And I'm like, and then I'm like, I hear Sarah like goes around the corner, and she's like, ah! I'm like, and I just like straight line, beeline it right to the exit. I'm like, no, I'm done. I'm good. Like, no, I'm not doing this anymore.
I've never seen her run so fast in my life. Never have.
So for the mazes in Hollywood, guys, so were there sections of the mazes where there wasn't much theming, where it's kind of just black hallways?
Exorcist.
Okay.
So Exorcist. I'm pretty sure you have Exorcist in Florida, correct?
Nope, not this year.
Okay, so Exorcist. It's like you're going through a maze, there's dark. There'll be some noises, some little lightning flicks and stuff like that. But then you keep going in. So it's like you go into the bedroom part, and it shows the one section of the movie. Then you're going through another dark maze, and all of a sudden you're basically walking in, looks like the same room, but then it's changed. You know, she's sitting up and she literally vomits. But then you're going through an area of the maze where it's just darkness and stuff, and then all of a sudden you're back. So it's like doing a circle around the big studio sound room with the same replica of the room, but there's different things happening basically from the start of the movie till the end of the movie, where it showed the pastor or the father was dead.
Frankenstein, the Bride of Frankenstein just kind of did where they did have like where it would be like the dark areas. They still had something of like chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. So you could kind of like see like where the storyline was going. So those are my downtimes when I could kind of like regroup and be like, okay.
So what it's kind of commonly known is that Horror Nights Orlando tends to get a bigger budget than Horror Nights Hollywood, and part of that's because Horror Nights Orlando is more popular. There's more ticket sales, there's more revenue coming in, so they can have a bigger budget. So what tends to happen, from what I've heard at Hollywood, is you have some of that lesser theming, black hallways or whatnot, to save money in some cases.
Any other questions?
No, we're good.
You have any other questions, Ivah?
Nope.
Okay. Are we ready to move on to the next part?
Yep.
So now we come to the part where the entire Coaster Challenge podcast.
Oh, are we basically we are we combining both Orlando and Hollywood?
No.
Okay.
No.
So
your turn, Jenna.
I know. Thank you. Okay, Andrew, you're on the spot now because I have yet to be out to Universal out there. Is the park set up the same where it's the different levels?
No.
Or is it just one flat?
It's one flat area.
Okay. So all the mazes are all within the same area?
No, they're all over the park. So the way the mazes work, and it's pretty much similar in Hollywood in this regard, is people wonder how they fit these gigantic mazes in these theme parks. Well, they tend to be in the backstage areas. Now, and I'm sure they do this in Hollywood too. In Orlando, several of the mazes are actually inside sound stages that they use sometimes for filming. So they have sound stages in Orlando. And then other stages are in things like parade buildings, show buildings that are temporary show buildings, tents. They have like permanent tents set up. But for theme park enthusiasts, and again, a lot of our meetup people that are joining us, that are big time coaster and theme park enthusiasts. One of the cool things about Halloween Horror Nights Orlando is you really get to see backstage at Universal. You get to see a lot of the backstage area and how big some of the show buildings are for the rides, like Men in Black, and other rides that they have there. So it's kind of cool in that regard as well.
Now, do they have the same theming as the Hollywood one? Like right now, they have like the Chuck, or they have the Purge, the Chainsaw, Exorcist. So are do they have the same themes, or are they two different themes?
Yeah, they're different themes. So generally, what's been going on in recent years is, I would say about half of it is the same. So about half the houses are the same kind of houses, at least the same theme, the same IP as between the two, between Orlando and Hollywood, some similar scare zones, but about the other 50% is different between Hollywood and Orlando. We don't have Exorcist. We have both. I mean, both coasts have Haunting of Hill House, for example, which Marcus is talking about in the chat here. Do you guys have Beetlejuice, right?
No,
not anymore.
Oh, no. You don't have Beetlejuice. Okay, we have Beetlejuice. That's one of the big houses this year.
Dang it, they need to bring Beetlejuice to ours.
Yeah, that's
the other thing, Andrews, I think you also need to tell our listeners and our viewers that is it just on the Universal side, or is it Islands as well that they do
so
because the park's a little bit different.
Right. Good question, Ivah. And just a real quick mention, just to finish up answering Jenna's question. Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Bride of Frankenstein, those are both on both coasts. Not to say the same exact house design, of course, but the same theme this year. Those are common as well. So in answer to Ivah's question, so Horror Nights has been around for 30 years here in Orlando. It's a long history. First year was called Fright Nights, was only for one weekend. So it's grown a lot since then. It's the first number of years were only 2 or 3 houses. Now we have 10 houses. For a couple of years back, I think it was in the very late 90s, early 2000s, right after Islands of Adventure opened to the public, they tried doing Horror Nights over at Islands. And I never went to it back then. I have friends that have gone. It didn't work very well because Islands, the way it's laid out, it's not as wide passageways and wide areas as Universal Studios is here in Orlando. So it was kind of a challenge for the crowds and also to fit everything in. So Universal Studios is a better location for Horror Nights. Now, when Epic Universe opens up in a few years, who knows? Maybe they're designing that in part to be able to host Horror Nights at some point. That would be cool.
So there's going to be 3 parks for Universal now?
There already 4. Is 3.
There's Volcano Bay. They consider Volcano Bay a third gate because it's a themed water park.
Okay.
It is a really cool water park. But yeah, so Epic Universe is going to be the 4th gate. What will be cool about Epic Universe hosting Horror Nights, if they do that, I'm not saying they're going to do that, is there is, again, all this is rumored, one of the lands that is substantially rumored for Epic Universe is a classic monsters land with Dracula and Creature of the Black Lagoon. So they're already going to have that haunt stuff built in. So yeah, I see you smiling there, Jenna. So.
I'm a fan of the classics.
Me too. Me too.
I'm not so much a fan of the newer stuff, but I like the classic Dracula, Mummy, all that stuff. The black and whites, Vincent and all of them. I like those way better than some of the newer stuff.
For sure. So what else would you like to know about Horror Nights Orlando?
I'm trying to think because it's so hard because I've never been there, so it's I don't know how the park is actually set up.
Well, how much does it cost? How much does it cost to go?
Let's put it this way.
Okay.
So Universal Orlando is technically two parks. You got Islands of Adventure on the left, and you got Universal Studios Florida on the right. Universal Studios Florida is basically like Universal Hollywood. Islands of Adventure is like, how would you say it, Andrew? Almost like a Cedar Fair. Roller coasters, dark rides.
It's much more of a thrill park. It's like California Adventure. It really is
when you say islands, I'm thinking like, there's going to be a lot of water.
There is water.
It's both parks, but both parks, this is Florida, so both parks surround a lagoon. There's a lagoon in the middle of both parks. Islands of Adventure, the lands, they're considered to be islands each, but they're all connected by, a couple of them by bridges, but mostly by land. So islands is in quotes, air quotes, but to put things in a different way, just for Jenna to help you out, because I realize you're not familiar with Orlando, which hopefully you will be in the future coming here, is there are a total of 10 haunted houses, about 5 scare zones, 2 shows, and a whole lot of really cool themed food and alcoholic drinks.
Okay, with the scare zones, are they designated scare zones? Like there's so you have just like this area, but there's like the in between are scare free, or is it like Knott's Berry Farm where it was all?
No, it's designated scare zones. There are areas in the park where you won't really run into scare actors. They're the safe zones, if you will.
Yeah,
I'm sure it would make you happy. The scare zones this year, some of them I think are better than others. They're all good. My favorites, though, are probably the one in Hollywood, which, not to be confusing, there is a Hollywood section of Universal Studios Orlando. It's called Hollywood. It looks like Hollywood a little bit, like a couple streets of Hollywood, if you will, or one of the lands, if you will. And there is the scare zone is there, and there is, and I didn't name them, so don't go after me for the dad jokes, the puns, but it's Lights, Camera, Haction.
Oh, geez.
Eddie's Revenge. And Eddie is an icon character. And it's just a really fun scare zone. It looks like a twisted carnival. Lots of scare actors. There's stages with things going on, special effects a little bit.
Probably clowns.
There are some odd clowns in there. Yeah. The other one that I really like a lot is Gorwood Forest, which is in the Central Park section of Universal Studios. And it's all these creepy tree people, and the costumes are amazing. All these like branches for arms, the way they move around, and some other characters as well. Very, very, very creepy area. And it's kind of a narrow area to walk through, so they can get you really easily, the scare actors. There's 3 other zones. Crypt TV, I don't quite understand that one, but it does have what's the
Tales from the Crypt, the Crypt Keeper?
No, it's not that crypt. It's not Crypt Keeper. It's what's the evil horror Christmas movie? What's the name of that character?
Krampus.
Krampus. Thank you. It's escaping my mind. Krampus. Yeah, the German is from German fables. Krampus is there. Or Krampus, however you pronounce his name. Then there's the 30 Years, 30 Fears scare zone, which is very basic. It's kind of the entrance to Horror Nights. Usually that scare zone isn't very intense. And then the other one that's kind of cool is called Seek and Destroy. And it's sort of this like Orwellian. Imagine if we lived in an Orwellian society with all these police controlling us and trying to tell people what to do. It's sort of that sort of theme to it, where people are being controlled in this scare zone. And there's not too many scares in that one. The scares are mainly in the Gorwood Forest and the Lights, Camera, Action. So those are the scare zones. Overview of those.
Okay. All right. Well, I got a question for the 3 of you. So for David and Jenna, and then Andrew, how much was it to go to Halloween Horror Nights at each of the parks?
So you guys go first.
So with my annual pass, I get a free one. I get a freebie because I'm a platinum holder.
I got in free because of him.
But if you are a annual pass holder, you get a discount for a Horror Nights ticket. It cost me $69 and that basically what she got to benefit. So,
which I was not planning on doing. Like I came down here that day and I was like, okay, I was going to help his mom with some stuff. And he was like, you're going to Horror Nights with me. And I'm like, I am. He's like, yep, you are. I'm like, oh, okay. So.
All right, Andrew, how much is it for Florida then?
So Florida, the tickets start at basically right about the same price, $70.99, so $71. Looking at, and again, this is not from memory. I'm not, so basically those are that's for like a Wednesday. Looking at October here, Thursdays are $74, and that's the actual price. Fridays are $90, Saturdays are $100. Sundays are also very cheap for the most part. Some of those are $74 or $71. So it ranges from $70 to $100.
Okay, so we don't have any more questions.
Do you want to talk about the houses, the shows?
I'm not real big into the shows.
Okay,
that's just not really one of my things.
If it's okay, I'd like to talk about the shows because they're pretty cool. Okay, so Jenna, let me ask. Okay, since you're kind of the interviewee here, let me ask you this: do you like World of Color?
World of Color.
I haven't seen World of Color.
Oh.
My favorite at Disneyland is actually Fantasia and the fireworks shows. That's what I mean.
Okay.
I'm like one of those. Like growing up, we would always do like the parades and stuff. So growing up doing that stuff, I'm like, could care less. Like I want to go on the rides and I want to do just this one specific show.
Okay. Well, David knows World of Color, and I'm sure a lot of our audience does. Ivah will hopefully get to experience that in the future, and you as well, Jenna. There, a number of years ago in the lagoon at Universal Studios Florida, they installed a lot of waterfall, ejecting devices and underwater lights and smoke effects and all these different things, much like World of Color has it with Disney at California Adventure. And they do a nightly show and also some fireworks projection mapping on the buildings behind the lagoon. And they do a nightly show just with the normal everyday night, not Halloween. They show different little scenes and so forth on water screens, like Fantasia, they show the water screens, showing, like highlighting E.T. and Transformers and Harry Potter, the various IP themes that are part of Universal Studios. So for Horror Nights, starting in 2019, they did it again this year. They do something called Marathon of Mayhem. Carnage Factory is this year's title. And they retheme and retool that water show to highlight the various houses and so forth, the stories and IPs and whatnot of Horror Nights. And so things like, for example, the classic monsters they have. At one point, they have Frankenstein. They've got Creature from the Black Lagoon, and they use the water screens and project that onto them. Really cool rock music. The fountains are amazing. These waterfall fountain things, really high, and they move around a lot. Colors, all different colors, LED changing color lights and whatnot. The one thing they do at one point, they make the whole lagoon look like it's bioluminescent, like this really pretty, like light blue color, something you see in like movies and so forth. It's a really cool show. It's only 10 minutes long. They play it every hour, from like 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock until like 11 o'clock or midnight. I think they go until. So it's a fun show, but that is not the real big highlight of the event. So I'm hoping David and Ivah are able to go. I know Mark and Natalie, who are in the live stream with us tonight, they are going to Horror Nights. The other show is called Halloween Nightmare Fuel. And that is a 30-minute show, and it is in the Fear Factor Theater. So it's actually an outdoor theater with a cover in case it's raining, bleachers and all that, seats for everyone. It holds maybe 1,000 people. I have seen that show, I think now 4 times, maybe 5 times. And it always is, quote unquote, sold out. It's not an extra ticket, but it's always full. It is a combination Cirque du Soleil, dancing, music, pyrotechnics like I've never seen before. You've got these fire dancers with hula hoops on fire, hulaing, for example. That's one thing they do, amongst others. There's a couple of really good illusion magic tricks that are done. It's an incredible show, like very talented performers, really well done. Very, very popular. There's a reason why it, quote unquote, sells out every time. And they do that like 3 or 4 times a night. And then that actually is one of my favorite things at Horror Nights this year. It's such a well done show. those people that have been to Horror Nights before in recent years know of the Academy of Villains show, which is what this show replaced. And I maybe a little bit of a hot take, but I think that this Halloween Nightmare Fuel, this new show, is better than Academy of Villains. It's really well done. It's a really cool show. So, and then we just to touch upon the houses real quick. I mentioned some of the ones that are common between the coasts. The houses are pretty good this year. They're solid. There's no like amazing houses, like, best of all time, in my opinion. But my favorite house this year is one of the originals. We'll be talking about Not Scary Farm in a bit, but at Not Scary Farm, everything's an original house. You don't see a Texas Chainsaw Massacre or a Exorcist. They don't license anything. They make their own houses. Universal Hollywood, Universal Orlando, some of the houses are original, some of them are IP based. So one of the original houses this year is called Wicked Growth, Realm of the Pumpkin. And it's all about, going through this pumpkin patch that's haunted and turned sour, and these pumpkins are killing people and devouring people. And it's so well themed, very, very intricately themed. Like you feel like you're in this overgrown garden inside the house, and the scares are really good. And everyone seems to be liking that one the best as well. All my friends, other podcasts I listen to, it's the number one house. So,
okay.
So right. Anyway, I want to mention that.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to the trip, California trip.
Trip.
So, Miss Ivah.
Yes, Miss Jenna.
Seeing how this was your first trip out here to California. What did you think of California overall?
Overall, nice weather, a lot of traffic. We ran into traffic leaving Universal to go to Disneyland. Overall, I love the assortment of parks. I only got to go to 4 of them, but what I saw, I loved, and I definitely want to go back.
Yeah, you'll hit plenty of traffic out here.
Well, you have to come back because there's still a lot to see and a lot to do.
I know.
What were your favorite things you did?
What was the favorite thing? Okay, so we did.
Favorite things.
So let's see. When David and I went to Universal Studios, and my favorite thing was the tram tour, obviously, because it was just so neat to go to the different movie sets, and how it was very interactive too, especially with Con, and you got wet on Con, which I was really surprised about. And then you had Fast and the Furious, and then the other thing, Jaws. Yes, I love Jaws, and I wish that Orlando never took that out. I miss Jaws.
Same. That bridge.
The bridge is still there.
I know.
The falling bridge. The falling bridge is still there, but they don't. It's just there as a monument now.
Yeah,
the old ride, which is sad because we used to go through that bridge, and the bridge would literally fall, like it's collapsing.
It felt like it was
Yeah, you went through so many different movie sets. We went through Jurassic Park. We saw a ton of the cars that they've used in a bunch of the Universal movies, like Fast and the Furious, Knight Rider, Jurassic Park. All the Jurassic Park actually chain movies had some sort of vehicle that we got to see. So, and then of course, my favorite thing was going to Jurassic World and also doing the raptor encounter too.
Of course, to meet Blue.
I got to meet Blue.
Right.
I got to meet Blue, and then David and I got onto the ride itself, and David peed his pants literally because at least it looked like he peed his pants because it was just all over the front of him. Yeah, you got soaked. I didn't. Huh?
Yeah, I got soaked. She didn't. It's funny about the Jurassic World ride. No matter where you sit, you're either going to be dry or you're going to be soaked. So
yeah. We got soaked before we even did the big drop on it. It was when we were in the Mosasaurus part of it.
Everybody's waiting in the back, man. I swear to God, we were sitting in the front, and I guess when we dipped down, Dak made it where the water covered over the boat and right into the front row on our laps. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
Well, and if anyone has not seen the POV of the ride, the Mosasaurus is the very first thing you go into with the ride, and it's swimming in this tank. And then all of a sudden its tail goes and flips you over the side. And that's when the water goes, shoom! And that's when David got soaked.
Right.
Nice.
Like, oh, great. Incoming. And then it hits the glass, and the glass starts cracking, and then water starts literally
spraying out,
which is a really unique effect because
that is cool.
Universal with its screens, but this was the one that when it's cracking, all of a sudden water is shooting out from that spot. And I was like, that's a pretty impressive special effects they did there. So
the disappointment was Rexy was broken at the end of the ride before we dropped. It was supposed to be the Indominus Rex and the T-Rex going at it together, and Rex was down. He didn't move at all. I was mad.
Rex is pretty old.
He was working when Jenna and I went to Universal Horror Nights. He was working, but he wasn't working today when Ivah came. And I was like, darn, because he usually comes right out right as we drop to go after the anonymous Rex's neck. And did not happen.
Oh.
So
you probably scared him away, David, when you peed yourself. He could smell your fear.
Right?
Sure.
Okay. So what do you think about Disneyland in California Adventures during the day?
During the day? It was busy. It was busy. I felt like we were going nonstop to all the attractions. Wait times really weren't too bad. We did the Haunted Mansion, which is awesome because it's converted over to Nightmare Before Christmas, which is something that the Disney World Park does not do. So I got a chance to see. I'm going to be very fortunate, and I'm going to be able to do not only the classic Haunted Mansion when we go to Florida, but I also got to do Nightmare too, and got to see Jack and Sally and the famous Hatbox Ghost. And the only bad thing is we broke down multiple times when we did Haunted Mansion. That was the only bad thing.
It's never really they break down. It's just the fact that they have to load and unload
people.
The handicap. So they have special dooms buggies that they can load in for wheelchairs and stuff. So it just kind of gets caught up in that. So it's never really broken down. It's you wait for 5 minutes for them to get it all situated, and then you're back moving again.
Yeah, let's see. We did Space Mountain, which I prefer Orlando Space Mountain to California, just because Orlando seems like it's more intense. It has more dips, and California's was more just a bunch of turns and everything. So I was not impressed with Space Mountain. Sorry. Rise of the Resistance. We got very fortunate to ride twice while I was there. I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, as everybody in the group found out. So I'm sorry. I wasn't that hugely impressed. But I mean, for the detail, though, that they did to the area was amazing. And also for how they did the Kylo Ren and all the special computerized stuff at the beginning of the ride. I will say top notch on that. So I'm not mocking Star Wars by any means, people. I'm just not a huge fan. I did ride it, and I rode Smuggler's Run. So, but all the theming of the Galaxy's Edge area was amazing, though. So, and I know my characters, by the way.
So Ivah, I've got a question for you, Ivah. So since you're not a big Star Wars fan, so I know you've not seen Pandora yet. We're going to be doing that when you're here in Florida in a few weeks.
Correct.
Right. Okay. But you have done Diagon Alley.
I have not done Diagon Alley.
Oh, okay. So because earlier you were talking about missing Jaws and all that. So I get it because I love the Jaws ride, but you haven't yet seen the benefit of what it was replaced by. Okay. So, all right. Well, my question was going to be, especially not being a Star Wars fan, what you think just from a theming perspective, immersion perspective of Galaxy's Edge versus Diagon Alley or versus Pandora. So, we'll have to revisit that question in a few weeks. Okay, got it.
The last time I was at Universal in Florida was right after the original stage of the Harry Potter first opened up. So I've done the castle, the Forbidden Frontier, the Forbidden Adventure, and the castle, and I'd done Flight of the Hippogriff. I had never had a chance to do Diagon Alley or any of that stuff.
Hagrid's and we'll talk more about that later. Yeah, when we talk about Florida. But I was just curious what your perspective was. But okay.
Yeah, but going back to Disneyland, though, the one ride that I recommend that if you want a one and done ride, it's the Matterhorn. That thing, I tell you, was the roughest. It was the roughest. roller coaster I have been on, and I felt like I had to get a chiropractor after I got done with that ride. My back hurts so bad.
You gotta keep in mind though, that's one of the very
originals.
No, it is the first. Yeah.
It is literally
The
built
original.
into that Matterhorn. So it's
mountain.
there's no way for them to like redo that track unless they totally disassemble the whole Matterhorn, which they will never do.
Yeah, sadly, it's just like Volcano at King's Dominion. You know, we lost that amazing ride because it was built into the mountain. And so the Matterhorn, you know, they have, a lot of people don't know this. So Matterhorn is, you know, like you were saying, Jenna, is the very first tubular steel modern roller coaster built in, what was it, 1958, 1959?
59.
Yeah. And then, you know, about 15, not quite 20 years later is when Space Mountain, a totally indoor coaster, not subjected to the elements, was opened at Disneyland. They've already redone the whole track for Space Mountain because it's a really old ride as well. They redid that track in 2005 for Disneyland's, its 50th in 2005. And it's a great ride now, very smooth, but they can't do that with Matterhorn. To your point, it's built into the mountain. So enjoy that chiropractor bill. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, but it's still a great ride. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I had to do it because of the nostalgic part with it being, like you said, Jenna, one of the very first Disneyland rides after the park opened. So,
but we got to ride Gidget's coaster.
Gadgets, get it right.
I call it
Gadgets.
Coaster.
I call it
Gadgets
coaster.
I like Gidgets. I don't know why.
No, you're outnumbered. It's Gadgets.
Gadgets
coaster.
Over in Toontown. In fact, we actually got to see the construction of Mickey's Runaway Railroad.
Yeah.
That's a big building. They're building across the entire Toontown where the mountain.
It was like the whole back of it.
The whole back of Toontown.
The whole back of
that whole
Toontown.
building is for that attraction. So they're going to have to build all new scenery in front of that building when they complete it. But I was like, wow, that's a massive building for this ride.
Did you guys get to go on Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
No, we didn't get
No.
They're supposed to be redoing that and making Jessica Rabbit more of a part of the ride.
But family friendly version. Yeah.
That was so yeah. You have to come back up so you can do that before they change it. Just like Splash Mountain too.
Yes.
Splash Mountain's going to be changing anytime soon. Disney's budget's been hit hard with COVID. So sorry all the people that wanted to have that change, but I'm in no hurry for Splash Mountain to change. Sorry.
Same here. Yeah.
In fact, I still need to go experience Splash Mountain in Florida. But anyway, for California, this was the first time the whole team was all together in California.
Mm-hmm.
And although I say we weren't all fully together the whole time, but
we
had a lot of fun. It was just there was a lot to cover. There was a lot going on, and between the Mice Chat event and Not Scary Farm, between Disney, Universal and Magic
Mountain.
There was a lot going on that weekend. That was probably my most busiest weekend.
Yeah, it was nonstop from the time I got off of that airplane to the time I got back onto the airplane.
Yep. Same here.
That's what happens when you try cramming so much into a short period of time.
I know, it's intense. Yaz and I were beat. And I saw how tired you were getting. Yeah.
But you know what? I would not change one thing about that weekend at all. I had a blast with everybody, meeting Jenna for the first time and Mike and Kindle TV. So I loved it. I loved meeting Yaz too.
I was impressed. Yeah. I was impressed with the Mice Chat beginning.
Yes.
Andrew and Yaz missed the buffet part, but Ivah and I got to enjoy. Knott's really put on a good buffet, and I was telling Jenna.
Buffet, David.
Boo. So it's still a buffet for me because I was excited that we even were allowed to have a buffet there this year.
But that was
because California does not allow a lot of buffets, and so I was enjoying that. moment, but the food was fantastic. But I think what made it more special was Dusty Sage from Mice Chat actually took the time and sat at me and Ivah's table and got to talk to us for a little bit. In fact, he even knew who Ivah was, and they never met.
Wow. Look at you, famous.
I know.
Famous all-star. So how did he know of you? Did he know of you from your channel?
From Wildcat Coasters, he recognized my name.
Nice. That's really cool.
Now, I have to admit, though, the one thing I loved about Knott's, and everybody swore I was going to turn into one by the end of the day, was I love the boysenberry.
Oh,
you were a boysenberry.
I was a boysenberry. I had the punch when we went and did we had dinner at Mrs. Knott's Chicken. We had boysenberry butter, boysenberry salad dressing, pie.
That's why your hair is that color, Ivah. It's boysenberry. Yeah, that's boysenberry.
I'm the spokesperson for Knott's. That's what it is, Yeah.
Okay, so what did you guys think of the scare mazes at Knott's Berry Farm for the night?
Better than Cedar Point.
So a hot take. So I'm a big, I'm probably the biggest haunt fan here of all four of us. I know, Jenna, you're probably on the other side, on the other end of the spectrum. And I've been to a lot of theme park haunts, your Cedar Fairs, your Fright Fest at Six Flags. Obviously, Horror Nights we've talked about. I've been there. I've been independent haunts. And I love Halloween Horror Nights in Orlando. It's a lot of fun. I've gone a bunch of times. Always have a frequent fear pass for the whole season. But going to Knott's Scary Farm with you guys, I had been there 4 years ago. I'd been there a few years prior, been there a few times. But having it fresh in my mind and having gone to Horror Nights so much here in Orlando, I love Horror Nights, but Knott's Scary Farm is where it's at. And their mazes, they're not, again, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Beetlejuice, they're not IP. They're all originals, which is actually impressive for all that, how that creative, Jeff Tucker and the team at Knott's Berry Farm to create all that stuff on their own. But the mazes, they're a lot of them are big mazes. They're long and they're so well themed. The special effects, the scare actors on the wires coming down at you, and all the scares are really good in general. And just the theming. Horror Nights is great, but Knott's Scary Farm is scarier and edgier and more scare actors, the whole park being a scare zone. My favorite is still Knott's Scary Farm. It still is.
Yeah. Yeah. And for those Ohio people that are tuning in right now, a lot of you have attended haunt at Cedar Point and at Kings Island. And I will tell you, the one thing that I noticed with Scary Farm is that Cedar Fair tends to use a lot of the same haunt trails and mazes names all throughout the chain. Scary Farm did not do that. We didn't have like Corn Stalkers. We didn't have Deprivation. We didn't have Wolf Pack or anything like that. Everything that was at Knott's Scary Farm was specific to just that park. And it wasn't like my favorite was still the depths, where we went into the undersea ship and had the octopus and the sirens. That was my favorite thing. But the one thing that I loved that Knott's did that kicked it off was when they released all the scare actors out onto the ghost town, into the midways, that we opened those doors right after we got out of our dinner and they just flooded in. That was my favorite thing about it.
Knott's Berry Farm, just like I told Ivah when we were approaching Knott's Berry Farm, I gave her a heads up. I said, you're going to notice when you walk into Knott's Berry Farm, this is no ordinary Cedar Fair park.
Nope.
Cedar Fair is not making it run like all the other Cedar Fair parks. And that's why I said when I went to Kings Island, Carowinds, Kings Dominion, Cedar Point, California Great America, I was noticing different atmosphere. But when you go to Knott's, Cedar Fair did a good job, and I think it was part of the agreement when they bought the park, is that they wanted that park to stay traditionally how it was, how the Knott family had it running. And they did a good job. So
they did.
Knott's Scary Farm, apparently Cedar Fair is telling Knott's, do whatever you want, because that's basically what Jeff Tucker said in that interview. And you know what, folks? I got to say, and thanks to Ivah, Jeff Tucker was nice enough to give us a behind-the-scenes tour of the show backstage, which some of our friends, Bernie and Dee, you missed out big time.
So
we actually got to go backstage and actually see the actors, dressing rooms, see the actual stage, because the show that Jeff puts on has this glass screen in front of the stage, which looks like it's an enclosed room, but the glass screen is used for special effects. So when there are people on stage and they do magic and stuff, it literally shows it through the screen. And really, when you go inside, it looked like plain box, counters and stuff, but outside it looked more different.
Yeah, so David, just to add on to that, so the show that you're talking about is called Invitation to Terror. It's brand new. It's one of a couple brand new things at the Haunt this year at Not Scary Farm. And it is Jeff Tucker's baby. For our audience and listeners, a couple of weeks ago released an episode with Jeff Tucker, interview that I did with him. Really fun, great guy. And in that episode, we recorded that, David, was it back in August, I think, maybe July? Yeah. And I was probing him about, hey, what are the dates going to be? Because we were hoping to be able to all come to California. And here we are. We were able to do it. Ivah and I were able to travel out for the event. What dates it's going to be and what's new this year. Jeff, what are you personally working on? Are you doing, Trap 2.0, which unfortunately they're not the hanging. But he said, I've got something new and it's really cool. And so I told David and Ivah, we had, and Yaz, it was with us too most of the night. We were going to have a lot going on, but we've got to go see Jeff. We've got to go do his show. And it was at the Mystery Lodge Theater. And it was a true Jeff Tucker creation. It was both funny and really scary at the same time. And David, you were talking about that glass. The glass is there, because usually in a theater, you don't have glass. The actors are right there on stage with the audience right there. Yeah. Well, the reason why that glass is there is for the Pepper's Ghost illusion, which is a primary part of the Mystery Lodge. And that technology has been there since 1986. I mean, it's Pepper's Ghost has been around for decades, but the projectors that they use for that and the tech they use for that, it's been around for 40 years almost. And, I guess, David, you said you have never seen the Mystery Lodge show, right? Okay.
That was my first time seeing the stage itself.
Well, the stage, right. So the Mystery Lodge show, it's cool. It's a good show. But, it's kind of older tech. And when the show that you, Ivah, and I, and Yaz, we all watched, with, I don't want to give too much away, but the Pepper's Ghost, how crisp it was, the resolution of those ghosts and everything else we saw. We talked to Jeff about this when he was so kind, as Ivah mentioned, to give us the backstage, and David, as you mentioned, to give us the backstage treatment there. He said, I asked him about that. He said, oh, no, we've upgraded all the projectors, all the technology, but it is such a well-done show with live actors as well. So anyone who's going to Not Scary Farm this year, go to Invitation to Terror. It's not one of the mazes. It's not a ride, but it is so worth doing.
Yeah, I agree. And the one thing I loved, and I'm not trying to give anything away about the show, but I love the fact that it interacted with the audience too throughout multiple times throughout the show. And also I love the 80s vibe. Because growing up in the 80s, we all could relate to the music, to the clothing, and that's all I'm going to say about that. It's just I love the 80s part of it, though.
Well, Jeff Tucker is as we talked about in the episode we interviewed him, he's a huge 80s Back to the Future, huge 80s fan. So
yes, and we again
Back to the Future. That's where Jeff and I really clicked. Was him and I, our love for Back to the Future, and I just love that series.
So Ivah, you really, sorry, go ahead.
And again, the Coaster Challenge podcast would love to thank again Jeff for his generosity for giving us the backstage tour. You're welcome, Andrew, by the way, because I opened my mouth, and also for being a guest just recently on the Coaster Challenge podcast. So thank you so much, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. And a quick backstory on that. So I had reached out to Jeff once we planned this weekend and knew we were going to Knott's. And I said, hey, Jeff, David, Ivah, and I, and the whole team, Jenna as well, we would all love to be able to meet you. And he said, sure, I'll be there. I'll be at the Mystery Lodge hanging out every night. So, the four of us, along with Yaz, we went and saw the show, and we leave there and we go walking elsewhere. And I messaged Jeff, and he says, where are you guys? I'm waiting at the exit. And so he was waiting at the exit of the Mystery Lodge. So we went back over there and we were talking to him. And then Ivah, she's not scared to ask for things, which that's awesome. You do that. And thank you so much. And thank you, Jeff.
Yeah. And all the friends that were with us missed out big time on that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Ivah, your favorite. Ivah, your favorite maze was the depths, you said?
Was the depths, yep, with the sirens and the pirates and all that.
That was one of my favorites. Jenna, what was your favorite? Probably the least scary one, right?
That was the least scary one out of all of them. And
so is that your favorite?
In depth? Was it?
It's called
depths.
The depths.
The depths.
Depths.
Yeah. Was that your favorite though, Jenna? What was your favorite?
That one was probably one of the better ones that I liked. being the one that's the scaredy cat of the group, I did like that one. I could handle that one a little bit better than paranormal.
Oh yeah, paranormal's pretty freaky. Yeah. David,
this is his last year. Paranormal's last year.
Yes. It's the
David,
last year.
What was your favorite?
Whatever's going to replace that maze has got to be something that tops that one. So I'm curious what that will bring.
It's one of the best.
But the new one over by Accelerator, that was crazy.
Oh, Mesmer is my favorite. Mesmer is so good. Carnival, like sideshow themed. Really cool technology. Kind of like Paranormal has that show at the beginning. Really fun show. The maze was really long. It seemed like, at least, but not in a bad way. And just so many cool, just great theming. Good scares. That was a great maze.
Yeah. Well, Andrew, what was your favorite?
Mesmer. I love Mesmer. I love Mesmer. It's just like
Mesmer was really good. Mesmer, I would say, was probably one of my top favorites. But the depths, Jenna and I had this conversation in a future episode. But what impressed me about the depths was it was like a ship, but I felt like I was in a submarine. But I was impressed how the floor
was moving.
How it shifted, how it was like you were actually, and it actually rocked like you were on the water. And, I'm somebody in my family, we're born on the river and the ocean. That it felt so realistic. I say they did a phenomenal job doing the detail of that effect, because that was pretty good. You could get seasick on that motion. You could.
That's another one that's used to being on the water too, because he used to have a boat. So, but I think his is probably the newer ones, like that Mesmer, because he went through all 8 of them, and that was the first time he'd gotten to do all 8.
The only maze I didn't get to do was Pumpkin Eater.
Yeah. And I have to say, and I want to say something to that, and I'm sure all of you guys are going to agree on it. If you go to Scary Farm, the best thing to do is get a Fright Lane pass, because that way we got to experience, like David said, everything. At least David and I got to experience everything except for one maze. I don't know what the rest of you did, but I mean, there was literally no waits when we got the Fright Lane. It was definitely worth the extra money.
Not also that Ivah and I did 7 of the 8 mazes, but we rode every roller coaster.
Yep.
In the park that same night. Right. So So for those that argue about the Fright Lane pass, no, it's well worth it if you want to be able to.
So worth it.
So So just to clarify on that too. So David, Ivah, and I, we started off the evening together, along with my friend Yaz that joined us for the weekend. The 4 of us were part of the Mice Chat crew. We were there for the Mice Chat event, which now, David, do you now and Ivah for that matter, do you guys now understand why I was pushing that event so much? Between the
buffet was very impressive.
Not just the buffet, but the buffet dinner.
But we got to get into the mazes the first
before half hour
early entry
for the public, because once the public started flooding through, the lines were definitely for the general were extremely long. But the Fright Lanes did help us get through the rest.
Right. Yes. So you guys joined us for the first few mazes. I think the first 4 or so. Yeah,
and then you guys were on break, and you guys were into the puppet show, and that's when Ivah and I needed to continue
with the
coasters to get our coaster credits, because we didn't get into the park till 2 p.m, and then we had to be at the Mice Chat thing by 3:45. So we started at Ghost Rider, worked our way on the left side of the park, got all the way to Knott's Berry Tales. But that ended up being our last ride of the day in the general park. But then we had to leave the park to go to the Mice Chat. So basically, after we broke up with you guys, Ivah and I decided to continue at Boardwalk, where Knott's Berry Tales was, and continue down to Accelerator, into Fiesta Village, into Planet Snoopy, over by Silver Bullet and Sierra Sidewinder, worked our way around. And then we ended up rejoining with
Fernie and Dee and Sarah and Jenna and Mike. And then we ended up doing the back mazes, starting over by Mismer and all through that area as well. So
then we met up with you and Yazin, and we rode Ghost Rider at night then for our final ride.
We did the Invitation to Terror, and then we did Ghost Rider.
That's right.
And Ghost Rider. So Ivah and I have like the same passion here. We both are big GCI fans. You know, for me, Mystic Timbers is the best coaster at Kings Island right now. I don't care about all you Orion lovers. Again, I'm just kidding. You know, we all have our favorites. It's okay. But again, Mystic Timbers is where it's at. You know, Orion is nothing special for me personally. But anyway, so Ghost Rider, I've been telling people for years, ever since GCI did the redo on it, because that was a CCI, Custom Coasters, which is not Great Coaster. But when GCI came in, Great Coasters International in 2016, 17, when they redid and reprofiled that ride, because I rode it opening year when it was a CCI. And now as a GCI redo, that ride is incredible at night, of course, with the night ride. It's warmed up all day. It's running fast. And I remember looking back at you when the ride was over, and you were freaking out, Ivah.
I was not freaking out.
No, in a good way. In a good way. You were excited.
In a good way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, you rode Mystic Timbers when you were in Ohio, and Kim and Mark and Natalie, you guys have rode it in the dark before. I'm sorry, Ghost Rider at night tops that completely.
Absolutely.
It is a completely different animal, and that was my favorite coaster in the park at Knott's was Ghost Rider.
And we rode it day
Twice.
and night. And I told Ivah, I said, you're going to see two different versions of this coaster. You're going to see a version of the day of its speed, but then at night you're going to feel like this thing is hauling even faster. And
And now Kim Dykes is in the chat with us, and thanks for joining us, Kim. And yes, I know how much you and I have had our conversations, because I just wrote Thunderhead at Dollywood. You know, you and I have had our conversations about how much we love GCI, just like Ivah does as well. And yeah, Ghost Rider is Thunderhead and Mystic Timbers on steroids. It's a longer ride. The pacing is incredible. It's so good. So I totally salute you on it being your favorite ride in the park. I agree. I agree totally.
I had on that one.
Now,
Jenna was not a fan of that one after our day ride.
Now, I'm glad you guys got to share your experiences of the mazes. But really, the person that was scared the most to go in these mazes
was Jenna, of course.
It was Jenna.
So I'm proud to say she went on 3 of the 8, which is a record for her.
That was one more than I did at Universal.
Yay, Jenna!
You did the coaster challenge. You faced your fears. That's great.
Yes.
But what was your experience like going through those mazes?
Okay, so when we did the depth one, like, it was okay for me. I mean, because I was just like holding on to Mike, and I had my earpods in, playing music. I had my little crystal with me, and I'm like just fidgeting with that. Had the mask on, so it was like that. Okay, they couldn't really go after me so much, which we had talked about when we went to Universal. So that kind of helped. It was like, okay, they kind of like would try to get it, because we had Fernie and Dee, me and Mike, and then Sarah. So they would get Fernie and Dee. They would kind of bypass me and Mike. And Mike's not one to get scared anyways, as much as everybody has tried. He doesn't get scared. And then they would get Sarah. So for me, it was like that. I could see what was going on in front of me. I wouldn't worry about what was going on in back of me. I have this thing of like, I need to know what's going on in my surroundings. So like we got through that, and I was like, okay, I need a cigarette, because like I'm good. I'm not like freaking out yet, but I need a break. And then we went over to the Dark Entities one that was like across the way. That one was freaky. I didn't like that one so much with the robots and all that stuff and the spraying air. Like, I'm not finding that certain things I don't do well with. And then we went into the paranormal one, which for me, the paranormal thing kind of goes with my whole, like, the psychic abilities that I have and being able to read energies and stuff. It really messes with me. And that one did. It was just like, not okay with this one, not okay with this one. I mean, we got out of there. Mike looked at me and he was just like, you okay? And it was just instant, like, no, and just started crying. And Sarah was like, where was your crystal? I'm like, it was on the other side. And that just like totally messed with me. And I'm like, okay, I'm like done for now. Like, I need to get to where I can kind of like chill out for a minute and kind of recompose. And I told Mike, I was like, okay, I'll try for one more maze. And it was like, nope. Every maze we were hitting after that, I was just like, nope. We got to the pumpkin eater one and I'm like, yeah, no, I'm good. But for me, it's just because I know, like, with paranormal things, there's a lot of stuff that goes on during those types of investigations that people don't really think about. They think, oh, it's just all fake on TV, you know, haha, funny. In reality is those things really do happen. You know, there are buildings that really are possessed by spirits that aren't out there to be friendly. They are out there to hurt people. However they may, you know, do it. And I think that's what gets me on these types of things, is knowing that in the back of my head, like, okay, I know what this is like, what it really would be like. And I don't see the enjoyment of it.
Yeah, I think, you know, Jenna and I've been, you know, listening to you and David talk about haunts and some of our recent episodes, and, you know, being an empath that you are, and which I can relate. I'm very empathic as well, but I can tell that you are very strongly so. And for someone like yourself that really gets impacted by these sort of things, it's not going to be necessarily be fun. Unfortunately, it's for me, the fun of haunts is I don't scare easily. And so I laugh a lot at the haunts, just my own experiences, but also seeing people get freaked out in a good way, people that are there to enjoy themselves, you know, friends that I'm with, or even just other people from the park that are in the conga line at Universal or whatever it is. You know, just it's great to laugh at us having fun and people getting freaked out in a safe, good way. But for some people like yourself, it's too intense, and I get that.
Yeah, I mean, Michael's one of those. He loves doing the haunts and stuff.
Yeah,
he doesn't get scared. He laughs at, you know, how at the different people trying to scare him. He's worked them before. He's worked at the Knott's Berry Farm. He's worked at Magic Mountain. So for him, it's just he basically kind of was like my grounding point, because it was a very much, okay, he's not reacting. I can kind of hold on to this and know I'm okay. Where if I would have gone with somebody else, and I've had this in the past where I've gone with other people and they're just like, what are you doing? Like, no, kind of like, get off of me. And it's like, you don't understand. And that was before I even realized that I was an empath and how these things affected me. And it was like, most people don't understand what an empath does, what that feels like for themselves, for, you know, another person, let alone themselves. So that grabbing onto something to have like that reassurance of like, okay, it's okay. I'm safe. I know I'm okay. They're not going to just, you know, try to scare me just to get a kick out of it. They understand where where I'm coming from. So
right. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Andrew, I'm kind of like you, where I don't scare very easily. As you can tell, I wasn't one that was very jumpy when we were going through the mazes and the areas and stuff. The one big downfall that I had, it being my first time visit, and I was very lucky to be able to have you and Yaz and Jenna and Mike and Dee and Fernie and Sarah and David there, was you guys knew the park. And when it went completely dark and you didn't know where you're going, it was my issue. So I was so glad that I had a group of people that knew where they were going and everything. Because I'll tell you, when you got into Ghost Town and it was pitch black and you had that fog rolling in, you could not see anything in front of you. And I knew I would have gotten lost.
Well, and Jeff Tucker, and Ivah, I know you're now like David and I, we're connected up with him on Facebook. You'll notice in his posts, especially this time of year, his tagline, his famous tagline is "See you in the fog."
Yep.
And the smoke machines at Knott's, they must have more smoke machines than all the other parks. And there are, especially Ghost Town, there's so many sections. Like I said earlier, the whole park is basically a scare zone. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's hard to see more than a few feet. And then when you add in the chainsaw people, which I know Jenna loves, quote unquote, and then you've got the slider people, because a lot of the other parks, like Universal, doesn't use sliders. Currently. Yeah.
A lot of the Cedar Fair ones do. Cedar Point uses them. Kings Island uses them. And I love sliders.
Six Flags uses it. Yeah.
Yeah. I love sliders.
Yeah. Oh, I love them too. But when you combine the sliders with the smoke, it's great. I mean, the ambience of Not Scary Farm is so good. It's so good. So now you guys did not get to experience Pumpkin Eater, but when we split up, Yaz and I, we're huge horror fans. We love our coasters, of course, but we're huge horror fans. So we stuck with the Mice Chat crew the whole night until we met up at the end with you guys, of course, as we already talked about. And so Dusty Sage, the founder of Mice Chat, who we all got to talk to that night, great guy. He leads the whole Mice Chat crew that want to stay together like we did. He calls it the the Terror Walk, or I forget what he calls it, but he leads everyone around through that smoke and everything from maze to maze. And we do the mazes as groups, just have it's a big social, big blast with each other, lots of laughing, lots of fun. And we did all the mazes. Pumpkin Eater has been around for a while now. It's probably on its way out too. It's a fun maze. You guys didn't miss anything special. It wasn't, say, Mesmer or the Depths. But the other things that we did with the group is we all did a group ride on the Calico Mine Ride. And that has some light theming this year for haunts, which they haven't done in a while. So they used to, years ago, back in the early 2000s, have scare actors on the mine ride, inside the mine ride, which was awesome. And chainsaws and all that. But ever since they redid the mine ride, did the big refurb on it, 5-6 years ago, whenever that was, they've been really hesitant to let the actors back in again because they could damage all the work they did. They spent millions on that redo. So what they did this year is they had lighting and special music, and they did do some things without risking all the work they did on redoing that ride. That was fun. We did that. Yaz did not want to get wet, so I went by myself and did the Timber Mountain Log Ride, which is known as the Halloween Hootenanny for Not Scary Farm, and they've got some light theming on that ride. And that's a great log ride. It's one of the best log rides out there. So fast paced. And the last thing I'll mention that we did that you guys didn't get to do, which I wish you had, was the Puppet Up show. The Puppet Up, and yes, I'm not going to say anything further, but the name of that show, I'm sure, is purposely named that way to sound like something else, because that show is done by the Henson Company. Brian Henson now runs the Henson Company, as he's Jim Henson's son. And it is basically adult Muppets. It is dirty, very dirty, non-PC, improv humor. And it's like 45-minute show in the Walter Knott Theater. And the Mice Chat crew, we got VIP seating like right up front. We're like second row. And they take input from the audience, and you can see the puppeteers that are not hidden. And you can see all the puppets, and they choose different puppets for each skit. And they'll take input from the audience and what they're going to do in that skit. And it's very inappropriate. So it's kind of like The Hanging in that it's non-PC humor, which is great to see because there's so little of that left in the world, unfortunately. So Yaz and I, all of us, Dusty, we were all dying. It was so funny. So funny. So
yeah, I bet you weren't dying as much as David and I were at Magic Mountain when we went.
Oh, because of the heat wave.
Because of the heat wave. Yeah.
Good segue, Ivah. Good segue.
Thank you. Yeah, the fact that it was 100 degrees at Magic Mountain, but it took a toll on David and I when we went. We both weren't feeling very well when we were going to the park.
I was kind of upset with the park this time because they shut down the Full Throttle Sports Bar. In fact, a lot of the beverage and food stands have been shut down all through the year, and I think it's just lack of staff. But for them to not have any indoor seating areas for people to cool off in that 100-degree heat, That was wrong. And Six Flags needs to know about that. That is just totally wrong. Okay, they could have opened up the Full Throttle Sports Bar to make it a cooling area where people can go sit down and cool off. No food served, but drinks maybe. But they should not make it where people have to sit outside. I don't care if the seating is in shady areas. All it does is shades down 10 degrees, still hot as hell. Mm-hmm. And Ivah and I had to leave the park early. She didn't even get a chance. She got halfway through the park.
I got 4 coasters in.
What coasters did you ride?
So we rolled Full Throttle, Twisted Colossus. Yeah.
Worked our way to the right. So the whole Twisted Colossus area with Goliath, Twisted, Scream.
Yep.
And Full Throttle. So
that was it.
You didn't ride X2 or Tatsu?
No.
By the time we got to West Coast Racers, it was so hot. We were both in heat stroke at that point.
Yeah. And we actually went into the candy store across from West Coast Racers to cool down. And I kind of got yelled at an employee because I needed to sit down and I had a drink with me. And she's like, oh, you can't sit on this display. And I'm like, I'm not feeling good. Lay off.
Yeah, David. I mean, Mark is mentioning the chat here. I think, David, you should put in an email or something to Six Flags to Magic Mountain. That's not good. That's not appropriate.
Well, Mark, I got my wonderful Six Flags survey after every visit. And trust me, I laid it on him about the food and beverage because it wasn't fair. We could not find any place decent to eat that was not in the direct sunlight. And I'm sorry, but Kim, Mark, Natalie, David, Andrew, you guys knew when we were at Hollywood Nights, I got sick because of the heat. And I don't react very well to heat at all. That just my body cannot take it. So the whole weekend we were there, it was in the high 70s, low 80s, and all of a sudden it just shoots up to 100 degrees. I can't take that. My body can't take that. Yeah.
So Ivah, my recommendation to you would be, because you've got to return to California to do Miss Magic Mountain. We talked to earlier. You have to have World of Colors. Yeah, so come in non-summertime. Go anywhere from like November through April when it's not as hot there. And Magic Mountain is open all year round. So May,
right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm definitely gonna come back because they have a new coaster coming.
Okay, we're gonna move on, but we can always come back and revisit this.
Oh yeah, just real quick, just one quick thing before we leave California. Disneyland, I want to thank Chuck. I don't know if he's on the live stream or not. Thank you, Chuck and Chase and Michelle, the Cole family, good friends of the show. Chuck is the only guest that's been on multiple times so far here in just our first season, and great friends of ours. And it was so great to spend almost the entire day with you guys at Disneyland.
Yeah, yes, nice. Thank you for coming out with us.
So sorry, go ahead, Jenna. Yes.
It's okay. If we need to do shout outs like that, that's fine. But I'm trying to keep this kind of like going because
David's got some work to do.
I know. David's got some work to do, which brings us to the next thing we're going to talk about. So a lot of you don't know that David not only is busy with Coaster Challenge podcast, he also has an actual job. He doesn't just go around and ride coasters all the time. He actually semi works. And one of the things that his company, which is Burbank Storage, does during Halloween is they actually decorate for Halloween with some wonderful decorations and Christmas. And we have not seen Christmas pictures yet. We've seen a lot of Halloween. So if you guys go up to David's Facebook page, he has been posting videos and pictures of everything that he personally, and Jenna, I know you and Mike have been helped him.
Mike hasn't. I have.
Okay, never mind. Sorry, Mike. Never mind, Mike. I'm not giving you credit. Sorry. So Jenna.
He's not here.
He's not here. Sorry. So David, why don't you talk about how Burbank Storage really gets the community involved in Halloween and the holidays?
I don't know where to begin on that, but we started 5 years ago, and I'm just really quickly here. I wanted to kind of share I'll explain and then I'll share the video because I did a professional video for those that have never seen it before. So we started 5 years ago. It started by putting some lights in some bushes and put a few pumpkins out there. And then my mom has a big fascination for witches. So we had a few little tiny witches that lit their heads lit up and everything. 5 years ago. And it's funny because Facebook was showing some of the memories recently. And I was like, wow, that's how empty the gardens feel compared to today. But we started doing this just to, we like decorating for the holidays, and community started liking it too. And our tenants and our clients really liked how we were decorating the facility. So every year we were getting more decorations. Yeah, we were getting more decorations, more like every year we would spend about a few $1,000s in decorations for both Christmas and Halloween. And then my mom was like telling me, she goes, you know, we should really theme each area of the gardens. And I said, well, okay, well, I was always a big fan of peanuts. So I love the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. I said, well, let's do a pumpkin patch in one section. Not necessarily peanuts, but we'll make it more like family friendly at first. But then it started every year getting more rotted, getting more scarier. You know, the pumpkin patch just keeps getting different every year. Then my mom's biggest fantasy about the witches gathering. So I did one section of the garden. It was all dedicated to witches, where we had a great older witch with a bunch of other witches around a pot. And this year we upgraded that, and now they dance, and we have a bigger pot with LED lighting, and so every year. And then my most favorite, so my biggest fear is spiders. I don't like spiders. Spiders give me the creeps, but I take my fears and I enhance it to something out in the decoration area. So I have this giant arachnid nest, and people ask me, they go, where did you come up with this idea? And I said, movies, 8-legged freaks. I go, the cocoons, the human cocoons I have laying on the ground and hanging everywhere, moving around. I go, there was a scene in 8-legged freaks where they brought the townspeople down to the mine. That's why I want to talk to Jeff Tucker and say they should do a maze in one of the mines at Knott's, because they can make it arachnophobia, type of theme where it's all spiders and stuff in the mine, But so we started doing all that. Then this year grew it more with a graveyard. So I'm very happy. And then we opened it to the community the last few years. And this year we opened it on October 1st, and we're just getting tons and tons of people. In fact, I'm going to have to scoot out in a little bit after this, because I got to go open up the gates for the community.
What's even scarier is when you has all this other stuff turned off, but the motion detector ones still go off as you're walking past. And I'm like, oh.
You guys happen to be in the Burbank area. We are open pretty much every day, every night, from 6 to 8 Monday through Thursday, and 6 to 9 Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And it was a lot of work, but
zero cost. It's free to come down and check out and get pictures.
Especially those that cannot afford to go to a theme park haunt event. This is a nice little thing for the kids to bring them down to. So, and hopefully next week we'll be passing out candy bags for the kids too.
Wow, that's awesome. So David, we've known each other for a few years, and I've seen you develop this theming. It's awesome. You see, even EOS, my dog, loves it. For over the past few years, and getting bigger and more extravagant. I only have one question for you. You mentioned Jeff Tucker and being inspired by you. When are you going to be going and working for Universal Creative Imagineering, or Cedar Fair, joining Jeff Tucker's team? When are you going to? You got to go do that. That's your calling, David. This is
already had two Knott's Berry Farm employees come and look at my displays. They work for Knott's Scary Farm too. One works as an actor in the Roaring 20s, and the other one works. One of them does a lot of the scare acting stuff behind the scenes, and just blown away by all that. So it's just let them come to me. Otherwise, I'm having fun doing it on my own. I make my own decisions.
It's a true labor of love.
Yeah,
it's clearly a labor of love. I know how much hours that you and Jenna as well have put into it. So it shows.
Oh God, don't get me started on the Christmas tree or the dang 5-foot spider.
The spider was the fun one putting together in the Christmas tree this year because it takes a team of 4 people and me sitting on an 18-foot high scaffolding as they're pushing me around, putting the lights around, all that fun stuff. So it's
about
fun.
Getting dizzy.
We have fun.
Oh yeah.
So David, so you guys are giving back to the community, like offering a free haunt, if you will, even the free candy for the kids coming up here. So, certainly here at Coaster Challenge, we love engaging with the community. And to that end, we are, very excited to do our first ever meetup here coming up in just a couple, 2-3 weeks here in Florida. You guys are coming my way. So let's talk about that. You like that segue, by the way?
Yeah, very creative.
Okay, first off, it'll be you 3 because I can't go, unfortunately.
Right. Well, I extended you an invitation, Jenna. You saw mine for next time. So yeah.
For next time, yes.
Yeah.
I just can't do it because of work. School just kind of interferes with that.
So yeah, no, I totally get it. It's tricky but you do really important work working in the schools, and yeah, I realize you're limited on time off for sure.
So Jenna, you are giving back to the community by being a teacher. So thank you for that. And absolutely. David, I personally would like to thank you for your contribution to the community of Burbank. So job well done.
Absolutely. So in terms of joining up with the community of our listeners,
of Orlando,
of friends and of Orlando. So, I live here in Florida. So you guys are coming just like, Ivah, you and I joined David and Jenna in their home parks, which also used to be my home parks. I used to live in Southern California, but now you and David and a whole bunch of other people, many of them in the watching the live stream today, are coming out to Florida to join us for all kinds of fun. So I'm curious. I think one thing I want to ask you and David, and I know David's short on time here. He's got to go out and do his haunt there at the storage. But I want to know, what is the one thing you're looking forward to the most for each of you in the trip coming up?
David, you want to go first?
I need a vacation.
Yeah, all that work you did. Yeah.
It's not just the holiday work. It's just this whole year. Since things have reopened, everything's been in maximum overdrive in our business. And there's just been a high demand for storage. There's been a high demand in rentals. There's been a high demand on just everything. My mom and I are exhausted. And this trip, I desperately need to relax. But I am looking forward to checking out. I'm looking forward to Universal Islands of Adventure because I'm looking forward to Velocicoaster, Hagrid's. In fact, was it Flight of the Hippogriff coaster? Mm-hmm. That's another credit there I never got. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to going back to SeaWorld, getting on Mako. Be nice. Busch Gardens. I've never been to Busch Gardens Tampa, so this will be a first. Never been to Fun Spot. Never done the Sky Flyer. So there's a lot of things that I'm going to get to do finally in Orlando that I didn't get to do back in 2017. And but really just a chance to relax and just really pat myself on the back for one hell of a year.
So. Yeah, no kidding. You deserve it. It's been crazy for sure. So Ivah, what about you? And you've not been to Florida as recently as David. It's been what, 2013 or so?
It's been 8 years since the last time I went to Florida. So the first thing that I'm looking forward to is not having to hear you talk about Velocicoaster anymore. Because
I'll still talk about it, but what I think what you're getting at is now you'll be able to understand why I talk about it so much.
Yeah, and how it's probably how it's such a disappointing roller coaster because it's gonna suck. I heard.
Oh, I'm sure you'll be the one person that doesn't like it. Okay, got it.
It's gonna suck completely. No, but
Ivah, but wait a second here. It can't suck completely because you're going to be wearing this super cool shirt.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So the first 24 people first train at the meetup, we're all getting these shirts. So
yes. The shirts, I will wear the shirt because, I'm supporting the podcast, of course.
So that's Velocicoaster on it. Yes.
That's Velocicoaster. No, but I'm looking forward to Universal. There's stuff just like David said. I have not done Diagon Alley, the trains in Harry Potter. I've not done Hagrid's, and I have not done Velocicoaster, and also the redone Retract Hulk. I have never done it yet. So SeaWorld, I love SeaWorld. First of all, I miss it in Ohio terribly. I wish it never left. I'm very much looking forward to riding Mako and also going to Walt Disney World on my birthday. I'm actually going to be celebrating my birthday while we're down there for the whole week, not just one day. And then my first time going to Busch Gardens as well as David's, and then also going to Fun Spot too. And we're also going to be meeting a couple people, not only our friends, our coaster enthusiasts, but we're also going to be having breakfast with Lee Cockrell too while we're there.
Yes, one of our former guests and a former Disney executive. That episode is not aired yet, but we've already had the interview with Lee. Lee is famous for being the executive vice president of Walt Disney World, among other occasions, on September 11th, and had to deal with that challenge. Hear all about that and the challenges that he faced and took care of, and didn't get him down during that interview when we released that. But we're going to be having breakfast with him. Yeah, brunch.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a funny feeling it's going to be action packed, just like California was.
Yep, absolutely. It's going to be a much longer trip too. So, it's kind of being divided up into two parts. The first part of it, which is with the meetup and all that, we're going to be having quite a few people joining us also from out of state. We have, in the chat here, we've got Mark and Natalie joining us. Kim Brooks, she was on the chat earlier. She had to go because she had to be up early. We've got Kim with her kids, Jake and Lily. We've got, I don't know if Nick's in the chat, Nick from Tennessee, Larry and Jean from Ohio. Might have some more people from California coming possibly. We've got Hayden as well coming as well. So we've got a lot of people. In fact, I was talking to you and David earlier today and did the math on it, that almost half of the train, the first train with all of us with the same shirts on, is people from outside the area that don't live in Florida.
Mostly from Ohio. Go OH!
Yeah, it's going to be a big Buckeye train.
All right, guys, that concludes the first part of our live episode. Make sure to tune in next week where you will see part 2 of our lovely conversation about other activities that we have done in the past month. So make sure to stay tuned next week for part 2 of our live podcast right here on the Coaster Challenge podcast.